Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Got Revenge on the Jealous Ex of My GF After He Tried to Ruin Us. After reading a lot of these, it finally occurred to me that I have one to share. 10-ish years ago, when I, 25M, was still in high school, I was part of a youth development organization. In some of our weekend camps in conjunction with other units, I had developed one hell of a crush on a girl a year younger than me from the neighboring unit. Call her Crush. Of course, I wasn't the only one, and while I made my move and made good progress with her over the following months, I wasn't the lucky one in the end. My competition, call him Jake, was from Crush's unit, so he had the advantage of having more regular in-person contact with her. They were together a couple of weeks until Crush decided that Jake wasn't the right fit for her, and split with him. As much as I was sympathetic to her for the breakup, I took this as the perfect opportunity to make my move. Think of me what you will for that. I was young and dumb and took my chance. It worked, and less than 2 weeks later, we were together, and not being shameful about it. Cue Jake setting in motion actions to trigger my revenge. The youth organization held yearly camps where other teens from units all over the country would get to meet in a central location for a whole week, conducting activities to build skills, teamwork, and inter-unit relations. One of these camps happened a week after Crush and I got together, and of course, we signed up for all the same classes together. So did Jake, and this exposed him to how much better as a couple Crush and I were compared to Crush and Jake. Apparently, he didn't like that one bit, and on the final night of the week-long camp, which was a party night, he went spreading rumors about how I had been talking crap behind Crush's back, that I was calling her ugly, had said I was being with her out of pity, had forwarded intimate photos of her, of which she never sent me in the first place. Hold that thought for later. Generally, really hateful rumor-mongering. Crush, of course, heard these rumors herself and came to me crying. Called me all sorts of names, and left with her friends all giving me dirty looks. Being a young, dumb teen at the time, I had no idea what was going on, and didn't suspect foul play, as at the time Jake and I were good mates. A day later, on the ride back home, I tried to message her to discuss the previous night, accusations flew, we had a big fight, and I ended the conversation angrily, saying I was fine with never seeing her again. Told her to enjoy her life without me. Think of me what you will for that. Cue Crush and I finding out we had been played. Later that day, the guilt for being an a-hole to her set in, and I messaged her again apologizing for my words and not being supportive enough when she came to me crying, explaining that I had no idea what was going on or what I had done to trigger her being upset with me. She then finally comes out and tells me that she had heard from multiple people the rumors against me. Now I finally had an idea of what had happened the previous night. I told her how much she meant to me and that I would never do anything to compromise our relationship. We then started contacting the rumor spreaders together, putting together the pieces, and all accounts led back to one person. Jake. The revenge came during the fact-finding. As Crush and I were going back through everyone who had spread the rumors, we were showing them our case against him and tearing down every friendship that Jake had throughout the organization. Some people, of course, stayed on his side. We simply blocked them. But most people saw Jake for the person he truly was, a jealous a-hole who would see others in ruin for his own gain. He lost almost all his friends in the organization, and everyone shunned him. He ended up leaving the organization not long after. The next story is titled, Entitled Neighbors Call 911 on Me When I Kick Them Out of My Pool. Claims I trespassed on my own property. Property seems like a strange concept to many people, but sometimes stranger than I ever thought. The story I'm about to tell you proves exactly that. But let's start with the basics about my family. My father was well off, so we lived in a pretty nice neighborhood. He did a lot of investing, and that's mainly what paid for our house. I do not consider myself to be a materialistic person, but I have to admit that nice things can sometimes make you feel good. Our beautiful big house gives me a good start every day, and the big pool makes me even happier, especially on hot days. Now, we're a Hispanic family, and when we bought this house, there was a pretty low Hispanic population in the city. Because of this, there were some times where we got treated differently than everyone else. We did have some genuinely nice neighbors, but there were also several neighbors who were snobby, entitled, and racist. I remember when we first moved in, the lady across the street even made a remark about, how can a family like them afford to live here? We did our best to brush them off most of the time, but still, it can be pretty annoying. We are hard-working people, just like everyone else. Most times, people like us, minorities in places like these, have to work even more to afford something someone that fits into the norms could easily do. Anyway, the house sat vacant for a while before we bought it. I think like a year. Like I said, it was a pretty upscale neighborhood to live in, so I'm assuming that it was out of most people's price range. At the time this happened, I was only 19 and in university. I didn't have a car at that moment, so sometimes after school my dad would still pick me up and I would head home. I was pretty close with my entire immediate family, so a lot of times we would grill outside and hang out by the pool for hours. This one particular day, which was the plan, my sister was even leaving work early to come over. My dad and I were pulling into the driveway and we heard a lot of noise coming from the backyard. We got out of the car and directly went after the noise. Our pool was full of people, strangers, drinking, dancing, and having fun in our yard. I see the anger building up in my father's eyes as he takes a few steps closer to the pool. "What are you all doing here?" my father shouted. "Having fun, but who are you?" "I have been having parties here every year," one man replied. "I have to ask you to get out, as this is my property now," my dad said, angrily. The guy, and who I am assuming is his girlfriend, then gets out of the pool but starts yelling racial slurs at my father and me, saying that we need to go back to Mexico and that there's no way we actually live in this neighborhood. He even told me I looked like a pool cleaning boy. Of course, this really upsets me, and I think my dad would have probably started a physical fight, but the guy and his girlfriend were already taking off. All the other people in the pool just got out and walked out, passing by my father and I without saying a single word. We actually called 911 on the neighbors and tried to get them for trespassing, but unfortunately our security cameras couldn't prove that it was them, so they basically got away with a slap on the wrist and verbal warning from the police. Either way, my dad stepped up security measures after that on the house. My dad even got new locks for our gate, several more security cameras that would send notifications to our phones if it detected motion. Like I said, we thought that was the end of the weird interaction, and we wouldn't be seeing those people anymore anytime soon. Everything was pretty quiet for a while as well after that. The security cameras didn't catch anything, our house alarm never went off, everything seemed peaceful and quiet. After a few other days, we left to visit my mother's parents. It was a trip that was organized a few months before, and we were all excited to go. We even forgot about the pool events and left without a worry. We arrived at my grandparents and started talking and eating because my grandma prepared an amazing meal for all of us. And as we were eating, the alarms on our phones started going off. My dad pulled out his phone and smiled. "It's them again, in the pool," he said. "I have an idea, Dad," I said. "So let me tell you the idea I had. I called the police, giving them an anonymous tip. I pretended to be an alarmed neighbor, taking care of my neighbor's property. I know for a fact that the owners are not home for a few days, and I saw people entering their yard," I said on the phone. "Maybe they allowed someone to stay as they're not home?" replied the policeman. "I don't know about that. They also had problems with these people before as they trespassed on their property once again," I said. "We'll check," the policeman replied. I ended the phone call, we jumped into our car, and drove home. We arrived at the gate at the same time as the police, which says a lot about them. The people at the pool heard the cars, so some of them came at the gate, and one of them was that boy. "Officer, I'm so glad that you're here. This family keeps trespassing on my property," he said. "I understand that they're probably very poor, but it's not okay," he added. "We actually came here because we got a phone call from a neighbor," the policeman replied. "You are the owners, right?" said the policeman, looking at us. "Yes, for a while now. These people keep trespassing like it's an empty space. I live here, my family lives here, and I want safety for us. You have to do something about it," my dad answered. "Officer, he's lying. Look at him," the man said, mocking us by doing different sounds and gestures. "This problem's actually very easy to solve," said the policeman. "Let me see the property documents," he added. My dad entered the yard, opened the front door, went inside, and brought the documents. The policeman nodded and looked at the man. "Now you, sir," the policeman said. "What? What documents? You have to believe me." "Look at me and look at them," the man shouted. "Sir, race is not a ticket. It does not equal documents, and it doesn't, or let's say shouldn't, give you any preferential treatments," said the policeman. "You're under arrest," he added. The man was handcuffed, and everyone that was with him at the pool had to go to the police station. It felt amazing to feel like justice was made for us. And we finally got to enjoy our house and pool without someone trespassing. Summary. In a racist neighborhood, some people decide that it's okay to trespass onto our property and use our pool. After my father kicked them out, they entered again when we were on vacation. We called the police and gave them an anonymous tip and went back home. The prime crook was arrested and everyone else was taken to the police station. We got our pool back and justice was served. The next story is titled, Don't Use My Laundry Detergent. I used to live in dorms where there was communal laundry, and I was usually good at remembering to bring my detergent back with me. Well, I forgot one day and left my detergent in my laundry bag on top of the washer I was using. I come back to find my once half-full detergent almost gone. I was pissed because I was 18 with not a lot of money and detergent is expensive, but I was willing to waste some to get sweet revenge. A week later, it was time to do laundry. I poured bleach into the bottle with the little detergent left and forgot it. I purposely put it inside my laundry bag on top of the machine I was using to make it known that obviously it was someone's and not for communal use. Well, I come back to find my detergent almost gone. So, to the person who used my detergent, I hope you were washing your whites. The last story is titled, My Neighbor Made My Life a Living Hell. When I first moved into my current apartment about a year and a half ago, things were seemingly fine. It's in a condo unit, but its own separate building, so it's just my unit in the building and one neighbor across from me. When I first arrived, my neighbor introduced himself and asked if I needed any help carrying things in. I told him I'm all set. He seemed relatively friendly. Over the course of several months, however, I started to get the inkling that things were not fine with him. I would hear strange yelling coming from his apartment from him or other people. People would be coming at all hours. He would be going in and out of the apartment briefly for only 5 minutes at a time. I was very quickly starting to pick up on the notion that he was selling, and not just minor stuff, I believe, if you catch my drift, out of the unit. The night before Easter, my car was robbed. I called the police on Easter Day, and they came out but couldn't do too much about it. I reported it to my landlord and the woman who is associated with my building who originally showed me the apartment. She accidentally texted me, thinking that she was texting my landlord, expressing that it was definitely my neighbor who did it. I texted her back and kind of questioned it and asked if she thought it was him. She said that she doesn't have proof. Fast forward to a month later, the police come one night to my unit, and I'm hearing in the hallway my neighbor being handcuffed. He essentially gets accused of some serious things involving a firearm. At this point, I'm completely freaked out. I had been trying already to look at other apartments, but it had been very difficult to find anything reasonably priced and a good unit. Over the next month or so, I started smelling an insane amount of smoke on a daily basis. The amount of cigarette smoke that was hoarding into my unit was unbearable. I ended up confronting my neighbor and telling him that the amount of smoke is really bothering me and that I have asthma. Lie, but felt necessary. He's very apologetic and says it will not happen again. Of course, it continues to happen. At this point, I had just about had it. Between the strange yelling happening, his criminal activity, the smoke, I couldn't take it. It might sound cheesy, but my one guilty pleasure TV show is Real Housewives, which I can guarantee is not his. I set up my Bluetooth to connect to my audio of the show through my phone. I placed the Bluetooth right near my door. I blasted Real Housewives like it was no one's ducking business. Our walls are so thin that he and his clientele had to listen to nearly every episode of Housewives of Jersey on a loop. When I would hear him having conversations or people coming over, I would start playing it loudly through the door. I know it's not the pettiest possible route I could have gone, but I damn well tried. To conclude the story, several months ago I come home one night to police at my apartment. They're looking for my neighbor and doing a wellness check on him. They end up barging down his door, and long story short, he was deceased. I figured it was OD related, but the night before it happened, I did hear a very intense argument with him and someone else. I'll probably never fully know. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you